I'm Christian Fraser. You're watching The Context on BBC News. The British government says it has a plan to stop the flow of small boats across the English Channel. But will it work? The refugee groups say the proposals are unworkable and will leave thousands of people in limbo. In Turkey, the train carriages provide shelter for the homeless a month on from the devastating earthquakes. The death toll has risen to 50,000 and is still climbing. It spells crisis for President Erdogan. Today, the fractious opposition in Turkey united behind one candidate who will fight to replace him in May's general election. Tonight, with The Context, the Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh, and for the first time on the programme, the editor of The Spectator, Fraser Nelson. Hello, warm welcome to the programme. 40 migrants who crossed the English Channel were brought ashore by the Dover lifeboat this morning. So far, just short of 3,000 people have crossed in the first 2 months of this year. That's twice as many as the equivalent period last year. The Prime Minister says stopping these boats is one of his top 5 priorities. Tomorrow, we'll see how he proposes to do it. His new policy, that's been heavily trailed, suggests that going forward, migrants who cross this way will be removed and banned from future re-entry, and automatically their applications for British citizenship will be rejected. We'll talk about what is proposed in a second, but let's first hear from Fraser. He arrived by small boat in 2019, fleeing persecution from Iran. He was granted asylum a year ago. He's been speaking to BBC Radio 4.
If you don't have an address, if your home has been destroyed, if you're living in a tent, how will you vote? We don't know yet the logistics of how they're planning to do that in a little over sort of 8 weeks' time.
Extraordinary challenge, yeah, to stage an election amid all that. We'll have to leave it there. Anna Foster, thank you very much, and congratulations on your reporting. Some of it really insightful as to what's gone on in Turkey. We'll be right back. We're going to go to a short break, but we're going to talk about Ukraine and the situation around Bakhmut.
You experienced racism. Why didn't you walk away?
That's a really good question.
You're a politician.
I'm not a politician. I don't read the polls.
Yeah,
I
you are
sit
a
in Judiciary
politician.
Committee. No,
you are very definitely a politician.
No.
The very fact that there were not people who looked like you.
Hold on. I'm only halfway through my answer.
Is secret schooling happening across Afghanistan for girls?
It does.
You simply can't assume that.
Actually, yes, you can.
Hard Talk on BBC World News.
Hello, I'm Christian Fraser. You're watching The Context on BBC News. The longest battle of the war so far, President Zelensky says Ukraine will resist and reinforce its positions in Bakhmut. The battle has put into sharp relief a bitter divide within the Russian military. The head of the Wagner Group accuses Central Command of denying his men the ammunition they need to finish the job. One of the most important steps forward in ocean conservation. We'll look at the importance of the new High Seas Treaty signed in New York on Saturday night. And the girls' basketball team that beat the boys and were still denied the trophy. Tonight, with The Context, the Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh and the editor of The Spectator, Fraser Nelson. Welcome back to the programme. After 20 years of wrangling and prevaricating, an extraordinary thing happened in New York on Saturday night. A new UN treaty was born, a treaty that one day will protect our ocean biodiversity. The agreement, signed by a majority of countries, will for the first time put in place some rules for the conservation of the high seas. Almost 2/3 of the world's ocean lies outside our national boundaries, beyond the 200 nautical mile mark. The high seas, where there's been very little regulation, means that a portion of the planet, hundreds of miles from land, is essentially lawless. In these waters, nearly 90% of our sharks and rays are now at risk. Every second breath we take comes from the ocean. It is the seaweeds and plants that live in the oceans that sequester the carbon we pump into the atmosphere. There were a number of fragmented rules already in place on fishing, shipping, mining, fossil fuel extraction, but nothing on the scale of what has been agreed in this treaty. So it is immensely positive news, albeit there is a long way still to go. First and foremost, the treaty has to be fully ratified by enough countries for it to make a difference. Let's speak then to Julian Jackson, who leads the Pew Charitable Trust's engagement in Europe on its campaign to protect ocean life on the high seas. Julian, welcome to the programme. How many countries would need to ratify this for it to be meaningful?
They win the championship and they end up empty-handed. And I actually called the mayor's office in Hoover, Alabama today to ask them why. And they put out this word salad statement no one understands. Shame on Alabama.
Give them the trophy. Give them the trophy. They've earned it.
What?
Marianne, thank you very much indeed. Fraser Nelson, thank you very much for your company too. We will be back, of course, same time tomorrow. Do join us for that. Good night.